Hi everybody, hi friends of the MMA services. Ray Merriman is with me today. We are here in Germany and we're going to present you part 5 of The Incredibles. So good to have you here, Ray.
It's a pleasure to be with you again, Antonia. Thank you.
So yeah, we thought, how shall we call this part? We had the incredible lineup of spring, and then really the incredible constellations of spring turned into a pretty incredible summer. So we thought we'd just stay with the incredible, and this is going to be part 5.
Let's stay with that theme.
Yes. And it's going to be the return of the Saturn-Neptune themes. But before we get into it, and I'm going to ask him a lot of great questions, we will review our spring constellations and how many of Ray's predictions came true, right?
Right.
Okay, let's start. March 25th, that was a pretty incredible constellation.
Well, this began the whole incredible lineup of geocosmic signatures for the spring. This is where you had Saturn in Sagittarius, is shown on the top here. And it was making a T-square to Venus and Neptune, and Jupiter. The main parts are Saturn, Neptune, and Jupiter, because they would last from, well, especially from early March through the end of June.
Yeah.
And to some extent, a couple of those are still in effect, like the Saturn-Neptune continues in effect through the middle of September. But the incredible spring lineup began with this setup, lasted through June. We're still feeling some effects of it because of the Saturn-Neptune that's going to go on to mid-September. So we'll talk about that today.
Yes.
What happened with the incredible spring lineup and how it's continuing into September and what we can anticipate.
So what did you predict based on this for the spring that came true?
Well, if you look back between March and June, some of the most important things with this aspect had to do with broken agreements.
Yes.
People had confidence, they had trust in their government that these agreements that were made would continue. But we saw a big violation of that in the terms of many people when the United Kingdom decided to exit the Euro Union with the Brexit. And that was right at the turn of spring and summer. And that was right at the end of our aspects. And we pointed that out, that period between June 10th and June 29th would be extremely critical. And that's when the Brexit took place and all hell broke loose. You know, you had the markets fall hard. There was a sense of panic in the world. But everything recovered quite nicely right after that, because that was the end of the incredible spring lineup of geocosmic signatures. And then we went into the other aspects that were shown on the next chart. And that would be when you had the Mars turned retrograde and Pluto turned retrograde within a day of each other, April 17th and 18th, and Mars with Saturn. And we pointed out that would be a time of increased violence and terrorism in the world that would continue through the spring. What we didn't cover, but which has continued to happen, is that violence didn't stop. It's still in effect, and it probably won't stop for a little while.
Yeah.
I mean, we get breaks here and there, but all the way through the middle of September, why this Saturn-Neptune's in effect, this is a possibility.
Okay, and then we looked into the charts of some leaders.
Yes, we did.
First of all, who is very much in the discussion, of course, is Donald Trump.
Donald Trump is very much in the news these days and has been all spring. He became quite a celebrity in his own right because he's the first presidential candidate we've had in the United States who had absolutely no experience in government. And it's interesting because what makes it so incredible is that not only he is the first person in his category to run for president, but the Democrats elected the first woman ever to run for president. So the two major parties have two candidates who have nothing in common with anything in their parties or each other in the past in that regard. They're the first ever of their type.
Okay, and Trump also has constellations in Gemini and Sagittarius, where we pointed out that they'll be hit by the incredible spring constellations. And his Jupiter is on 17 degrees of Libra, which is the degree where Pluto, is hitting. Yeah.
What's remarkable about this sun opposite moon is it's an eclipse. It's a lunar eclipse that he's born under. And on the day of inauguration, there is a Mars-Saturn that's going to be hitting this in a very hard aspect. which simply says that he's a Martian president.
Yeah.
In fact, his son and his vice president choice both have the sun, 22 and 16 to Gemini, right on the United States Mars.
Wow.
So if you want a very strong, bold, maybe aggressive, maybe warlike president, this is your man.
Well, considering the constellation that they're like something waiting for to be stirred on in fire, I would probably prefer somebody who would bring in a little bit more order and calm it down a little bit more. You know.
Well, maybe in the next interview we can examine the Democratic candidates, because they're bringing out the Venus-Jupiter in the United States chart. So the United States has a choice between a Venus-Jupiter type of 4 years to its country's chart versus a very Martian 4 years. And it all depends. Is the electorate, the population, thinking war and they want to stand up and be first again? Or are they thinking they want to, be conciliatory with the rest of the world and try to bring people together? So that's a choice the United States population will have to make.
And we will discuss that in an extra video where we go into the charts of Hillary Clinton too, and the lady from England. What's her name again?
Theresa May.
Theresa May.
Yeah.
So
and
we will look
Merkel.
into that, and Angela Merkel.
Yeah, there's a lot of dynamics going on this election. We'll cover that in
the next
number
video.
6.
Number 6.
Incredibles.
Yeah. But let's go on now to one of the most outstanding leaders right now, who is so much in tune with the incredible constellations of spring, because almost all his planets got hit by it. He's got the Sun in Pisces, Sun, Mercury, and Venus here, and then square his Mars and Moon, all in these critical degrees.
Yes.
He's got Jupiter in 16, also
too.
critical degrees, and his Uranus in the critical Pluto degree.
Right,
So
and you pointed this out.
amazing.
You're the one who brought this chart up, and I think it was our third section of the incredible lineup. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of his planets are involved in this. And he has been in the news very much recently because of the coup attempt to unseat him in Turkey, of which, from my experience, having been here in Europe the last couple of weeks, there's some doubt as to whether or not that coup attempt was really a surprise.
Yeah, there's a conspiracy.
And that would kind of fit, wouldn't it, with the Saturn-Neptune hitting all these planets, that either he orchestrated the coup or he is a victim of a coup. Because Neptune is either disillusionment and deception or Neptune is victimization. We don't know, but we know something's not right here.
And his Mars is very strong in Sagittarius, and with his Moon, which means he's personally hit and hurt. I mean, he keeps talking like that. And you would think maybe that's just a politician's way of, it's just this PR marketing idea. But no, it's true. He is personally hurt by these things.
Well, remember, when Mars went in retrograde, it was there on his
Yes, it was
Moon
right there.
and Mars. And he had a Martian return. And Mars is coming back now that this retrograde is over. It's coming back, as we'll show in the videos to come here. It's coming back with Saturn going to sit right on there. So he's not out of the news.
No.
He's very much still in the news in the month of August and September.
Yeah. So do you have any predictions of what how, because he was using the coup to be, in his own case, pretty brutal against the people he thinks that are against him. Now he takes a chance to get rid of all of them,
Well, when you think about a Saturn on your Mars and a Mars on your Saturn and Mars at the same time,
it's a lot of frustration.
It's frustration. It's stress. He's under a lot of pressure. He's got a lot riding on the line here. If he doesn't walk this tightrope exactly correct, things could fall apart quickly for him.
So it's not sure that he's going to be the great conqueror and hero in the end.
Well, he's going to try.
Yeah.
Saturn on his Mars. He's going to try to have incredible control.
Yes.
But instead of creating a sense of liberation in the people, it creates a sense of oppression. And so he's going to have to deal with these two issues here. His need for control versus the Turkish people's need to see, or not need, but tendency to see him as an oppressor. So you're going to have these two forces not getting along better, but fighting more.
I mean, right now it is so that here in Germany, at least the Turkish people, for them, he's the hero. And that is why Germans are like, what? Wow, I mean, it's a little bit strange what's going on.
Well, maybe that'll show in the chart of Germany.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, in his chart, it's not easy right now, and this is a make it or break it period.
Okay.
Probably this summer, it started with the spring. It's going to be very strong in August and September. This is a critical turning point in his life, which means probably in the direction that Turkey's going to take.
Okay.
And I don't think it's guaranteed that he's going to succeed.
Oh, okay. Let's see the next leader that we looked at. Of course, Angela Merkel.
She's involved in it.
She's pretty hit by it because her ascendant is on 16 degrees of Sagittarius and Saturn. You know,
Yeah, this is a critical point. Whenever Saturn crosses somebody's ascendant, it's like, you know, after 14 years where you've been in the public eye and the public loved you,
yes,
now all of a sudden you're the subject of criticism for the decisions you've made during those last 14 years, and especially the last quarter of that, which is the last 3.5 years. And from the people I've talked to here in Europe, there is a lot of discussion and dissatisfaction about how she handled the whole immigration policy, and then how she included Erdogan in it.
Yes.
And that seemed to backfire on her.
Yes,
and now she's a subject of criticism. And she'll probably come out of this, but the level of trust in her as a democratic, open person may have been hurt a little bit with this, maybe quite a bit. So it's not going to be so easy for her now for the next 14 years.
Well, so far in Germany, most people say, we dislike the way she handled it, but do we have an alternative?
Yeah, well, that's for you to decide in Germany.
Okay, next leader. Well, one of the leaders who has been out there for quite some time and still is, of course, is Vladimir Putin.
Yeah.
And Erdogan wants to meet him now. These two are,
Isn't that interesting?
these two are trying to form a new kind of a coalition.
And notice he has the Sun, Saturn, Neptune, Mercury, all in these degrees of Libra that Pluto is squaring, and Uranus is in opposition.
And,
plus he's bringing in his natal Uranus.
Yes.
So his popularity is going up and down suddenly, and he is hit with a lot of unexpected events that he has to respond to rather quickly. His success depends upon his ability to adapt quickly. Right now he's getting a lot of support from Donald Trump, of all people.
Yeah.
And notice that Donald Trump's Jupiter falls right on these planets in Vladimir Putin's chart. So there is a friendship that can develop here between these two. And Trump's Sun trines this. He's got a Sun trine Jupiter bringing in
So it's in harmony. Well,
Putin's.
both suns are in harmony with each other. Yeah.
They're two men that will probably be able to make some deals.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's I don't know if I want to see that happen, but we will discuss exactly that more when we talk about the upcoming leaderships in the election.
Correct.
Yeah. And then let's go to the next chart. What can you tell us about the Dow Jones chart?
Okay, so in part 2 of our series that we did with an interview, I showed this chart of a 3-point trend line going down from the all-time high in May of 2015 through the highs of November, December, and it was being tested when we did our second interview, somewhere around 17,500, 17,600. And at that time I postulated that the Dow would probably break this trend line and soar to new highs. And I based that upon the idea that the Fed Reserve Board would keep interest rates low. They would not raise interest rates. And remember, since that interview, there was much talk in April or May that they were going to raise the rates. And I said, no, they're not going to raise the rates because they're not going to want to interfere with the election, which in a sense is kind of incorrect because by not raising the rates, they are interfering with the election because that favors the Democratic candidate. And sure enough, there was a decline after this, but not for long, as the next chart will show, and you'll see that indeed the market did go a little below that line. This is here we are at the time of our conversation. It went above it, came back below it as the Brexit took place, and we did say that that somewhere around June 10th to 29th there might be stock market volatility, but we stuck with the idea that the market's going to go up because the Fed Reserve Board wants to create a wealth effect going into the election because they want they want the election to go a certain way, I think. And it's exactly what seems to be happening, whether it's their intent or not, is happening with the markets as I expected.
Okay. Let's see more of this.
Then we talked about gold. This was in our third interview. And you'll see that was taking place sometime in late March, early April. And in that interview, we talked about how Mars went into Scorpio, and it would give a big rally, as it did, until it went into Sagittarius, and the market would come down. Now, if you go to the next chart, you'll see how the market did, in fact, come down. Here's our interview is somewhere over here in early April. And the market went up a little bit, but then it came all the way down to the lowest price since our interview, even before our interview. It came down to 1,200. And the idea was it's going to go up again too, exactly because of the Federal Reserve policy. And not only that, but it would form a bottom when Mars is in Sagittarius. And when it goes back to Scorpio, it would start another run. And sure enough, here it is, another run. We've gone as high as 1377.50 as of July 6th. It's about to go into Scorpio again in early August here.
Okay.
I'm sorry, about to go into Sagittarius in early August.
Yes,
And what I also indicated in a webinar we did in June was that there's not a lot of activity that's taken place historically between 1,300 and 1,500 in the gold. And I expect the gold will trade between 1,300 and 1,500 for some time here. And we went down to 1,310 last week, and now we're back up to 1,360.
And do you have a prediction?
I think it's going to be a little bit rocky, but I do think it's going to trade between 1,300 and 1,500 still this year. That's still my prediction, that it will do that. If it starts going below 1,250, I may have to adjust my thoughts, but I expect 1,300 to 1,500 will be the range.
Okay.
Okay. Now let's look at the next one, silver. This was in our fourth interview, and I pointed out that silver is just starting to break out above $15 an ounce. You can see here.
Yes.
You're
at the arrow.
That was the arrow, and I said, it's breaking out here. And we had a nice divergence here on our oscillator. And so my prediction was that silver would go to $21 to $26, and it will trade there for quite some time. But it's got to get there first. If you show the next chart, here we are at 15 to 16. We're making our prediction right around here. Right around April. I'm sorry, right around April. And we came back down to test that $16 mark. It held, which is where this line is. And it's gone as high as $21.25 an ounce as of July 5th, a month ago. And I don't think it's done either, although there could be a pullback even back to this area, this 1806. You could see silver go back down to that area. But I do think it's going to trade to 21 to 26 for a good part of this year yet. Okay.
Okay, thank you for that. Now we want to get more. We did analysis and already prediction. Now we want to do more prediction. Excuse me, you are going to do prediction.
Well, you're pretty good at it too.
Okay, so Saturn, August 13th to September 10th. That's highlighting the Saturn-Neptune themes: lies, deceptions, and betrayals. And the markets.
The markets that affect are going to be crude oil, but we'll look at that at the end. Let's just look at the highlights that are going on between August 13th and actually it's about to September 14th. There's a lot of Saturn and Neptune going on, which is lies, deceptions, betrayals, but also it's misdirection, misinformation. Leaders are trying to steer your attention in one area away from what's really happening that they're doing behind the scenes. And here you see the first part of this. This is taking place August 13th. It's actually August 13th, 14th. Three things are happening here. One, you'll see Saturn. Saturn is turning direct. It had been retrograde since March. It's going direct at, guess what? 9 degrees Sagittarius, which is where Mars went retrograde. And Mars and Pluto went retrograde back then. And Mars at 9 of Sag. So this is going to be a season that probably is going to continue the danger of violence and terrorism. We must be very, very careful, very alert wherever there are crowds, wherever there are large places where people gather that aren't so well secured. So here we got Saturn going direct at 9 degrees and is forming a T-square to Venus at 9 degrees Virgo and Neptune, which is opposite Venus, 11 degrees. So August 13th, 14th, 15th, this is the first start of a very Saturnian, Neptunian period. Remember, Saturn rules loss and lack of. Okay, and it's hitting Venus, which is money and love.
Yeah.
Okay, so no money, no love. You got to watch your money. You got to watch your relationships, and you got to try not to argue in relationships about money. But this is on a very big level. There's something going on with the money, the net worth of the world, that's maybe not. There's some, I don't know how to put it, maybe some manipulation, something going on behind the scenes with Neptune that we're not totally aware of. So there may be a false sense of euphoria that's disguising something that's serious going on as far as a violation of agreements with people affecting money and affecting relationships.
And does it also mean relationships between leaders?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, because Saturn is involved with that. Saturn can be government.
Yeah.
It's personal and it's world mundane. So there's, Venus is agreements, and Neptune is deception, and Saturn is loss. So you've got agreements, and people are saying, yes, I want to shake your hand on this. This is a deal we're going to make. But Saturn says, when you're not looking, I'm going to kind of make a deal with somebody else that's going to violate what I've just done with you. So this is something in effect for about a month. And whether it involves Iran, whether it involves Korea, whether it involves the UK and Europe, how they're going to handle this separation, I don't know exactly what it is. But what I'm aware of, and what everybody needs to be aware of, is the agreements made at that time may not be made in good faith. So we need to make sure that there is a commitment and we can rely upon it.
Yeah, how can people protect themselves when they're entering this?
Sign the paper.
Sign the paper. Yeah.
Sign the paper. Make it formal. Get it, recorded. Don't do just something on the phone or by an email. You need to actually formalize it so that you have it. Or if you don't need to make an agreement, then hold off. Hold off until you have a chance to examine other things that are going on that you maybe suspect are happening, but you can't put your finger on quite what it is. You may need to take a month here to let this suspicion that you have manifest, because your intuition is probably correct.
Okay. So.
Okay, the next one.
Constellation.
Yeah, there's three major parts that stand up here. Here's the next one. This is a big one here. Mars conjunct Saturn square Neptune. That's going on August 24th to 26th. So here we are, Mars and Saturn back again in the same degrees that Mars went in retrograde. This is a particularly dangerous time, potentially dangerous time. And it's dangerous because Mars and Saturn are threatening. They can be violent. And it squares Neptune, so we may have something going on here with, maybe chemicals.
No, really?
No, I don't,
God.
I mean, it may be. There's other things too, but my job right here is to warn the public who's listening to this to be extra careful around these periods, because they are dangerous periods. The other thing with Mars and Saturn, now there's a positive aspect to it. When you have Mars and Saturn in Sagittarius, it can be a time when you are completing a project. You have to work very hard in this time of completing projects. Even with Neptune in square, you don't want to complete it. It's like you want to go on to something else. But what's important is you stay the course. You stay with what you're working on. This is not a favorable time to schedule activities where you overload yourself and you create stress. It's not a time to engage other people in battles, in wars, because you may be right. This is a time where somebody believes that Mars and Sag, I believe that I'm right. I'm righteous and I'm right, okay? I believe in what I do. I don't believe in what you do. However, if you go to war over something without organizing your side of the argument, your side of the debate, you're going to lose, because the other party that you're attacking has more support, even if they're wrong and they're not consistent with the worldview. You need to be careful how you handle your politics and your battle. You need to choose your battles very wisely. In fact, it's not a good time to do a battle. It's not a good time to attack.
Well, I wish the world leaders would talk to you and ask you about your opinion. Again, how can people protect themselves on a
what I do during
level?
These aspects, first of all, to protect myself, I'm going to avoid large crowds. I'm going to avoid going to places where there are large gatherings of people. That's how I protect myself. And when I'm driving an automobile, I'm going to make sure all the mechanical things are fixed. I don't want to, if the brake light goes on, I don't want to ignore it.
Yes.
Okay, you want to pay attention to warnings and don't go into the danger. I mean, it's just a matter of thinking, ahead of time. What am I doing? Is this a safe thing to do? You need to seek safety at this time. You need to be safe in what you do. But what I tend to do when Mars is hitting Saturn, I empty my appointment book. No appointments during those 3 or 4 days. Instead, I'm working on something I'm behind on.
Okay.
Because deadlines are coming up. If I schedule activities when I've got this aspect of deadlines being delayed, then it's extra stress.
Yeah.
You don't want the stress, so don't set appointments during that time if you don't have to.
That's a good clue.
Yeah.
Okay, we have another one,
There's
really big one coming up.
The biggest one is
That's
at the
the
end.
biggest one,
Yes. And that is
the solar eclipse.
the solar eclipse, September 1st, 2016. You can see the eclipse here, the sun, moon, and north node. In Washington, see, it's at 9 degrees of Virgo. Again, there's that 9 degrees of Mutable where Mars went retrograde.
Doesn't Trump have something important at 8 degrees of Gemini? I think, isn't he hit by, he's going to be hit by this.
Is he?
Yeah, constellation.
I'd have to go back and look at that. But it's an eclipse opposite Neptune, square Saturn, and Mars is in it too. It actually goes from September 1st through about the 14th till the sun is done squaring Mars, which is September 14th.
Yeah.
What is interesting about this particular eclipse, though, is that it makes a grand square to the United States Uranus.
Oh.
And one of the problems we've noticed in the news lately is all of this hacking of the Democratic Party computer server, of Hillary Clinton's computer server, and now their threat to the United States is going to go start hacking other nations who they suspect is violating the integrity of their internet. So this may be cyber warfare going on around September 1st till about the 14th or so.
Could be also a sudden change in, favor or against favor of Trump, I would think.
After this, after mid-September, you notice, one other thing you might notice here, Mercury and Jupiter are together in late Virgo, and they're about to go into Libra. Jupiter going into Libra, Saturn finishing as square as the Neptune. It's sort of like all of this anger and frustration that the world has experienced and gone through, that they're exhibiting toward anybody who doesn't agree with them. That's going to start to fade. We're going to go with Jupiter and Libra. It's going to be a little more conciliatory, a little more like, why don't we try to get harmony? Why don't we try to work together? That would seem to favor candidates who are focused on Venus principles, Venus-Jupiter principles.
Agreements.
Yeah. It doesn't seem to favor those who are Martian.
In the war.
Yeah, in the war. The warlike rhetoric is strong till September 14th. After that, it's like people think, wait a minute, I'm getting a little bit tired of this. I want peace. I want to have a break from this tension. It's not that it ends overnight, but you'll notice it slowly begins to go toward a more, I would say, sane conversation between people, and it gets a little bit more normal.
Wow, that's wonderful. That's really nice. I think that is so great that we can give a good news at the end of this talk.
Yes.
But we're not going to end it before we look on the crude oil.
Well, that's the point here. You got the new moon opposite Neptune. We had the Mars and Saturn, which is, a bit of a warlike aspect. They're starting to pass up. We still got Neptune going on here with this eclipse. It's going to last about 3 months either side, and that affects the crude oil market. So let's take a look at the crude oil. That's my market to watch for this season. And if you look here, on February 11th, crude oil made a 13-year low, I think, at $26 a barrel. And it nearly doubled on June 9th, 51.67, right at the time that Neptune was going retrograde, square Saturn. That was June 10th to 14th. And we brought that out in one of our videos. I think it might have been number 1 or 2. But there it is. Crude oil made a big move. It doubled in price. And now it's gone down 20% since that conjunction, since that square aspect. And if you look at the bottom here, this oscillator is way down here, almost near 0%. These show the percentage of retracement of the moon, of the move up, and it's already over 38.2%. You like to see a good, healthy correction be at least 38 to 61%, 62%, and you've had over a 38% correction. You're almost at 50% at $39 a barrel. So I think you're getting really close. You're in the zone here. We look for bottom to be made price-wise. The oscillator is bottoming. You're coming into all of these Saturn, Neptune, Sun, Mars, Venus aspects between August 12th through September 14th. I think you're going to see another bottom in crude oil and another big move up after that.
Oh, okay. So if people didn't buy crude oil for their heating yet, they can wait a little bit.
This is a good time to do it because this, the price is going to be relatively low here.
Yeah, so they would have to do it now, or is it?
They should do it Well, you're in the zone now. Anywhere between $42 a barrel down to 35.5.
Okay.
That's the price target. We're in it now. We got down to $40 and some cents the other day. So you're entering that price range now, and you're almost in the time band. Ideally, I'd like to see it between, August 12th and September 14th, and even preferably earlier than later because it's been a long cycle. It's an expanded cycle.
And after that, is it going to rally again?
I believe you won't see these prices again for maybe our lifetime.
Wow. Okay. It's good to know.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Merriman.
You're welcome.
Okay. Now we're at the end of this talk. And, we just like to announce that there's a lot of further services that Ray has to offer.
They can contact me at the address above here, by email, the website, the phone number.
And this is your German website.
That's my German website from Switzerland.
Oh, I forgot to put the dot here. Sorry. Of course, it's Europe.ch. Sorry.
Yes. And your listeners, they should also understand that if they want personal consultations, they should see you. You're a very, very good personal astrologer. Yeah. This is your information.
I'm not a trader kind of person, but I'm very much into relationships.
I'll deal with the market people. You deal with the individual, and the world will be better off.
And the market people approach Ray Merriman. Okay, that was it for today. It was great to talk to you, Ray. Very interesting.
Antonia.
And part 6 will deal with Hillary, Trump,
and their vice presidential candidates.
And their vice presidents.
Yep.
Theresa May from
Vladimir
England.
Putin, China, and the United States chart.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for listening and looking. See you.